Daf Yomi, Tractate Makot or Makos, Tractate Makos, page 5. A. The time is 10:53 p.m., 22:53, and Israel time, and we're on the top of the page with the words La Hachrazah, Rabbi Meir, Hachrazah mi yashminu v'yira'u nafka, for the requirement of proclamation. When the witnesses are taken to their execution, there is a mitzvah for the court to publicly proclaim the transgression for which they are being punished, in order to deter others from committing the same transgression. And Rabbi Meir derives the requirement of proclamation from the phrase in that verse, shall hear and fear. The prohibition is derived from the phrase, and shall not continue to perform any more evil. Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Mishal shememamoin vein mishal shemamakos ketzad Yehoshua chayav lechaveroi Messiah Zeus v'nim to zaymemin mishal shemenehen aval im Yehoshua chayav malkos arba'im v'nim to zaymemin kol echad v'echad loike ervoim. When punishing conspiring witnesses based on the verse, as he conspired to do to his brother, Deuteronomy 19:19, one divides the punishment of money among them, but one does not divide the punishment of lashes among them. Each receives 39 lashes. The Mishnah elaborates, how so? If the witness testified about someone that he owes another person 200 dinars, and they were then found to be conspiring witnesses, the witnesses divide the sum among themselves and pay a total of 200 dinars. But if they testified about someone that he was liable to receive 40 lashes, and they were then found to be conspiring witnesses, each and every one of the witnesses receives 40 lashes. That's the Mishnah. Now the Gemara says, Minahani Mili. The Gemara asks from where these matters derived. How do we know these things? From where are these matters that the witnesses do not divide the punishment of lashes among themselves derived? Abaya said, wicked in Deuteronomy 25:2 is stated with regard to those liable to receive lashes. And wicked in Numbers 35:31 is stated with regard to those liable to receive a court-imposed death penalty. Just as there with regard to those sentenced to be executed, there is no partial death penalty, so too here, with regard to those liable to receive lashes, there is no partial administering of lashes. Okay. Rava Omar V'inan kasher zomam lashes le'achiv V'leka Ihachi mamu nami Mamu mitzaref Makos lo mitzaref. Rava said the reason the punishment of lashes is not divided is that we require fulfillment of the verse as he conspired to do to his brother, Deuteronomy 19:19. And were the conspiring witness to receive fewer than 39 lashes, the verse would not be fulfilled. The Gemara asks, if so, in the case of money too, one should not divide the sum between them, as each sought to cause the defendant loss of the entire sum. So each one should have to pay the whole thing. The Gemara answers that sums of money paid by the witnesses can combine as the person against whom they testified receives the entire sum, as they sought to cause him to lose. But lashes administered to the witness cannot combine. Okay. New Mishnah. Mishnah says, Ein ha'edim nasin zomemin ad shiyazamu es atzman. Witnesses are not rendered conspiring witnesses until the witnesses who come to render them conspiring impeach the witnesses themselves, and not merely their testimony. Ketzad Amru Me'in Anu Ishploini Sheharages HaNefesh. How so? A set of witnesses said, we testify with regard to a man called so and so, that he killed a person. Me'in Anu Ishploini Sheharages HaNefesh. Amru Lahem Hechatamidin She'arei Neherag Zeh או ההורג זה היה עמנו עושו היום במקום פלויני אין אלו זמין אבל אמרו להם התלמידים שהרי אתם הייתם עמנו עושו היום במקום פלויני הרי אלו זמין ונהרגים עליהם. How so? A set of witnesses said, we testify with regard to a man called so and so that he killed a person. And they attested to the precise time and place that the murder took place. Then a second set of witnesses came to court and said to them, how can you testify about this event? This person who was killed, or this person who killed, was with us, meaning with the second set of witnesses, on that day, in such and such a place, which is not the location identified by the first set of witnesses. In that case, although the second set of witnesses contradicted the testimony of the first set, these first witnesses are not rendered conspiring witnesses. But if the second set of witnesses came to court and said to them, how can you testify that event? You were with us on that day in such and such a place. In this case, these first witnesses are rendered conspiring witnesses and are executed on the basis of their, meaning the second set's testimony. Bo acherim ve'azimu afilu me'akuram ya'agu Yehud Omer istatis hi zo ואינו נהרג אלא כת הראשונה בלבד. Okay. If other witnesses, let's say a third set came and corroborated the testimony of the first set of witnesses, and the second set of witnesses testified, and this third set of witnesses were also with them elsewhere that day, and rendered them conspiring witnesses, and similarly, if you get other witnesses, a fourth set came and corroborated the testimony of the first set of witnesses, and the second set rendered them conspiring witnesses, even if 100 sets of witnesses were all rendered conspiring witnesses by the same second set of witnesses, all of them are executed. are executed on the basis of their testimony, as the authority of two witnesses is equivalent to the authority of numerous witnesses. Rabbi Yehuda says this situation where a set of witnesses renders all the others conspiring witnesses is a conspiracy, istatit, as there is room for suspicion that they simply decided to impeach all witnesses who offer that testimony, and it is only the first set alone that is executed. Alright, that's the Mishnah. Gemara. The Gemara says, Menahani Mili. Amar Rav Ada, Di Amar Krav, Hine Ed Sheker, Ha'ed Sheker Ana, Ad Shetishaker Gufa Shel Edut. With regard to the halacha that the witnesses are rendered conspiring witnesses, only if the second set testifies that the first set was with them elsewhere at that time, and not if they directly contradict the testimony of the first set. The Gemara asks, from where are these matters derived? Rav Ada said, it is derived from a verse, as the verse states, with regard to conspiring witnesses, and the witness is a false witness. He testified falsely against his brother, Deuteronomy 19:18, indicating that they are not rendered conspiring witnesses until the body of the testimony is rendered false. Meaning, the testimony with regard to the actual witnesses was proven wrong, as they were not there at the time of the event in question. Divei Rabbi Shmuel Lames Boisola Asher Tisveh Gufa Shaletis. The school of Rabbi Shmuel taught a different source for this halacha. It is stated in that passage, if an unrighteous witness rise up against any man to bear perverted witness against him, Deuteronomy 19:16, indicating that the witnesses are not rendered conspiring witnesses until the body of the testimony is rendered perverted, but not through contradiction of any aspect of the testimony. Amarava Bahu Shnai V'Amru B'Mizrach Bira Harag Ploni Et HaNefesh Ubahu Shnai V'Amru V'Halo B'Marav Bira Imanu Heitem Chazinan Ikedekami B'Marav Bira Mechazeh Chazu L'Mizrach Bira Ein Elu Zomemin V'Im Lav Hare Elu Zomemin. Rava says, two witnesses came and said, so-and-so killed a person to the east of the building. And two other witnesses came to court and said to the first set, but you were not with us to the west of the building. But were you not with us to the west at that time? How can you testify to an incident that transpired on the other side of the building? We see, if when people are standing to the west of the building, they see to the east of the building, these witnesses are not conspiring witnesses. But if it is not possible to see from one side of the building to the other, these witnesses are conspiring witnesses. Pshita. Gemara asks, isn't that obvious? The Gemara answers, lest you say, let us be concerned about the possibility that these witnesses have particularly good eyesight and were able to see that far despite a typical person's being unable to see that far. Therefore, Rava teaches us that one does not take that possibility into account. V'amar Rava, Bo shnayim yamru b'sura b'tzafra b'chad b'shabta haragvoni et hanevish, u'bo shnayim yamru Mipanya bechad b'shabata imanu ha'item binarda chazina im esafer lefanya matzi azil misura narda lo havu zomen v'ilav havu zomen. And Rava says, if two witnesses came and said, so and so killed a person in Surah in the morning on Sunday, and two other witnesses came to court and said to the first set, in the evening on Sunday, you were with us in Narda. We see, if one is able to travel from Surah to Narda from morning until evening, they're not conspiring witnesses, as conceivably they could have witnessed the murder in Surah and traveled to Nardad by evening. And if it is not possible to travel that distance in that period of time, they are conspiring witnesses. The Gemara asks, Pshita, isn't that obvious? The Gemara answers, lest you say, let us be concerned about the possibility that these witnesses traveled on a flying camel, which means one that runs so quickly that it enabled them to traverse the distance faster than a typical person. Therefore, Rava teaches us that one need not take that possibility into account. Okay. V'yamarava באו שניים יום אחד בשבתה רק לא נהיה הנפש ובאו שניים יום לא נהיה אחד בשבתה אלא בצרי בשבתה רק ולוני אלא נפש ולא עוד אלא אפילו אמרו ערב שבת רק ולוני את הנפש נהרוגים דבעיתנה דקמס הדי גבר לה ברכתה להו. And Rava says, if two witnesses came and said on Sunday, so and so killed a person, and two other witnesses came and said, you were with us on Sunday, but on Monday, that same so and so killed that same person. Moreover, even if the second set of witnesses said on Shabbat Eve, so and so killed that same person, the first set of witnesses is executed, despite the fact that the person against whom they testified was liable to be executed without their testimony. The reason they're liable is that at the time that they testified, conspiring to have him executed by the court, the man was not yet liable for execution by the court. My kamashmalan tani latiga nimtzas achas behen zomemes who behain neragim ashniya bitura. The Gemara asks, what is Rava teaching us? We learn in the Mishnah in 6b with regard to two sets of witnesses who testified that one person killed another. Therefore, if one of the sets of witnesses was found to be a set of conspiring witnesses, he, the accused, and they, the conspiring witnesses, are executed by the court, and the second set of witnesses is exempt. The accused is executed because the testimony of the witnesses who were not rendered conspiring witnesses remains unchallenged. The first set of witnesses is executed because they were rendered conspiring witnesses. Clearly, conspiring witnesses may be executed even though they testified against a guilty person who was sentenced to death, provided that their testimony was delivered before he was sentenced. Seifa Mashenkin Nigmardin it's Trichale. Bo Shnaim Amru Bechad B'Shabta Nigmardino Shoploni Bo Shnaim Amru Bechad B'Shabta Imano Hisem Ella Erev Shabbos Nigmardino Shoploni. Ela afilu amru bitrei b'shabta. Nigmar. Odino. Ella Ber Shabbos Nigmardino Shaploni Velo Od Ella Avilu Amru Betrei B'Shabta Nigmardino Shaploni Ein Elu Neragin De Beidina De Kamasdi Gavra Bar Katalu. The Gemara answers, it was the latter clause of this halacha teaching that it is not so with regard to the verdict. It contains a novel element, and therefore it was necessary for Rava to teach it. And in the context of teaching the latter halacha, he taught the first case as well. The latter clause is, if two witnesses came on Tuesday and said, on Sunday so-and-so was sentenced to death in a certain court, and two other witnesses came and said, on Sunday you were with us elsewhere and you could not have witnessed the verdict in that court. But on Shabbat Eve, the same so-and-so was sentenced to death. The first set of witnesses is not executed. Moreover, even if the second set of witnesses said on Monday, the same so-and-so was sentenced to death, the first set of witnesses are not executed, as at the time that they testified against him on Tuesday, the man was already liable to be executed. And it is as though they conspired to kill a dead man. Whereas, and likewise, the same halacha that applies with regard to witnesses to testify about one who is sentenced to death applies to the matter of payments of a fine. Masadi Gavra Lav Bar Tashlumin. The Gemara explains, if two witnesses came and said, on Sunday this person stole and then slaughtered or sold an ox or a lamb, thereby rendering him liable to pay a fine of 4 or 5 times the value of the stolen animal, see Exodus 21:37. And then two other witnesses came and said to the first set of witnesses, on Sunday you were with us elsewhere, but on Monday the same person stole and then slaughtered or sold an ox or lamb. The first set of witnesses pay the accused 4 or 5 times the value of the stolen animal. This is because at the time that according to the testimony he stole the animals, he had not yet stolen. Moreover, even if the second set of witnesses said it was earlier on Shabbat Eve and that he stole and then slaughtered or sold the animals, the first set of witnesses pay the accused the amount of the fine he would have had to pay, as at the time that they testified, the accused man had not yet been found liable for payment by the court, and he could have admitted his guilt and exempted himself from paying the fine. They conspired to render him liable. Ganav Tavach Machar, Esrei Shabda Nigmardino, Ein Shalman, Dibidna Dikamasdi, Gavarbar Tashluminhu. But if two witnesses came on Tuesday and said, on Sunday, this person stole and then slaughtered or sold an ox or a lamb and was sentenced to pay a fine of 4 or 5 times the value of the stolen animal, and two other witnesses came and said, on Sunday you were with us but that person stole and then slaughtered or sold an ox or lamb and was sentenced on Shabbat Eve, the first set of witnesses are exempt from payment. Moreover, even if the second set of witnesses said on Sunday he stole and then slaughtered or stole an ox or lamb, corroborating the testimony of the first set, and on Monday he was sentenced to pay the fine, the first set of witnesses do not pay the accused. This is because at the time that they testified against him on Tuesday, the man had already been found liable for payment by the court, and therefore they are not conspiring witnesses. Yehuda Omer istatist zo. The Mishnah teaches, or Yehuda says, that a single set of witnesses rendered numerous sets of witnesses, all of whom testified that one person killed another, conspiring witness. This situation is a conspiracy, and only the first set of conspiring witnesses is executed.